Hello, you are listening to KPCA LP in Petaluma. This show is Dynamic Change, and the focus of this show is how to develop more wellness in your life and have a more fulfilling connection with others. My name is Michelle Love, and I am a certified wellness instructor, self-defense instructor, wellness coach, self-defense instructor, and fitness trainer. And I have a degree in psychology. For more information on me, you can contact me or go to my website, dynamicchangewellness.com. And today, what I would like to share and discuss with you is feeling responsible for others' survival on an emotional level. And so what I would like to talk about is paying attention to when we try to do things for other people. Like we feel like we have to do that. Because it can be detrimental to our own well-being if we're putting other people's needs and feelings before ours, and we're not tuning into ourselves to see, do I have energy for this, or how much energy do I have to give them to where I'm not going to feel depleted and overextending myself, which can affect my own well-being and the own things I need to do in my life. So I like to look at what is the most empowering way I can handle a situation. So if I'm trying to do way more than I know I can feasibly do and still maintain my own well-being, there's a couple dynamics that are going on there. One is that I am not looking at the person as empowered. So that's one thing. Everyone, in my opinion, has the same capacity to dive into themselves to find their own inner strength, to find their own sense of solid determination to handle and approach things that are challenging in their lives. So when we are trying to do things for them in a way that's imbalanced, we're actually not supporting them being empowered within themselves. So usually if I have someone come to me with something they need some help with or need some support with, what I do is I listen to them, and I work on being very present and really giving them that emotional support and sounding board, and really just hold space for that and listen to them. And then what I'll do is offer a lot of ways they can find further support. And as I do that, so I'll think about, what kind of groups could help them, what kind of professionals can help them, what have I heard out in the community that might be helpful, and offer some solutions so they can come to their own resolution. And I can also support, but first I want to throw out a bunch of ideas so then they can start developing their own tactics that are going to resonate with them. So basically, every person's different, and they're going to want to handle things differently as well. And sometimes you're dealing with someone that's very particular on how they want to handle things, and they need to look at what works for them. Maybe they need to develop that muscle of what coping strategies work well for who they are and their own emotional needs and their own ways of feeling balanced within themselves. And when we support them in finding that for themselves, particularly young adults and kids, anytime we can help facilitate them getting to know who they are, what works for them, problem solving in a new way, developing a new ability to move forward in their life, is going to support them becoming more in touch with their inner strength, feeling empowered, feeling competent, using, really acknowledging their own emotional intelligence, their own mental intelligence, and it's so much more powerful for them. And often when we are really overextending, it's not coming from the strongest place within ourselves as well. It's not our empowered place, because we're overextending to a point where we're feeling drained, we're feeling like we just don't have energy, but we're trying to push beyond that. So to look at that pattern, it's real important to, as you listen to this person, and let's say someone, for example, a very, very dear friend of yours has come down with particular illness. And I think that's a really difficult scenario, because I think we often feel powerless, like how much we can't necessarily change that, right? We can't change that for them. And so there's a lot of emotions that get brought up in a scenario like that. And thinking, okay, so as I listen to them, I check into myself and I think about, okay, how much energy do I have? And sometimes I have to tell them, I love you so much, and I know this is really challenging, and I'm going to check in and see when I have some time that I can support you with the situation, whether it's driving them to the doctor, helping them research some stuff, in a from a medical angle, perhaps. Maybe you're going to Google a bunch of stuff. Maybe you're going to find a physical therapist on YouTube, which, by the way, there are amazing physical therapists on YouTube. I worked in physical therapy for many years, and I will say, if you look, you can find a lot of really professional information, but you have to, really feel it out and really read on the person and look at their credentials, and always listen to your own body. But I will say there's a lot of ways to gather information for problem solving. So usually what I do is I give that time and space for myself to say, I'm going to get back with you after I've listened to them. Maybe I hugged them, maybe I took them out to lunch, and really been there for them and let them know how much I value them. And maybe I already came up with some ideas and said, we can look on YouTube, start researching this. Maybe there's some great podcasts by some doctors. Maybe there's a really helpful book we can look at. I can help you look up some doctors, some ways they can look up, some people that specialize within the area of where they're needing some help. So you kind of offer some assistance. And also, I think a really helpful one right away is to look up support groups, because support groups have already been looking up a lot of this information. So they already know a lot of resources. So after I've brought that up with them and talked about some ways they can find some support right away through support groups, and a couple different ways I would approach it that I can think of in that moment, then what I'm going to do is look at my schedule. I'm going to look at my schedule and tune into myself and take some deep breaths and look at, how am I feeling? How much energy do I have? How much do I have going on the next week or two? And start looking at when it would work well for me to add something to that schedule so I can help them. So in order to tune into ourselves, it's going to take some slowing down and some time. I think it's very easy to right away say, I'll do whatever I can. I have this day off. I have a little bit of time this day. But it's good to slow down and really plan ahead and take that time to settle into yourself, really see how you're feeling, how much energy you have, and what would be a balanced way to introduce that into your schedule for the next couple of weeks. And also thinking about, who else can you ask for help? So sometimes they don't have anyone else they can ask. Often I ask them, are there also other people you can reach out to? And then I think, okay, maybe I know someone as well that really enjoys assisting people, and maybe they can do a ride or two. So it's not all just about me in that moment. Who do I know? Who do I know that might know someone else that has a connection to something else that could support them in that situation? So I'm not placing it all on my shoulders. So after looking at all of that, what I do is I take some deep breaths to tune into myself. And you can do this with me now. So if you take, let's say we're going to do 3 deep breaths. So you can do this with me now. So if you're sitting down, you can have your feet on the floor in a comfortable chair, your hands on your thighs with the palms up. Your body feels relaxed and receptive. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths. Inhaling deeply, holding the breath for a moment, and when you're ready to exhale, try to exhale all of that breath out fully and even contracting the abdominal muscles so you've expelled all the air, so then the next breath will be very deep. When you're ready to inhale, inhale deeply. Hold it for a moment, and then when you're ready, exhale, exhale fully. And last breath, inhaling. Hold that breath and then exhale. And then what I'm going to do is quietly start tuning into myself and see how I'm feeling. Once I know how I'm feeling, I can see how much energy I have. Once I know how much energy I have, then I can look at that schedule and I can say, okay, I'm feeling pretty stressed. Maybe I can tell them that I can do some rides for them to the doctor next week. And for this week, start strategizing with them on, is there anyone else that can help them for this week? Tell them I can't this week, but I can for next week. I'm going to help you think of some solutions. And maybe they even need to have, just like a taxi, even if they need to do that. Whatever they need. Sometimes you can say, you know what, I can pay for a taxi for you to go this day if there's no one else that can do it. So you're still helping, but you are really acknowledging your energy level, and it doesn't necessarily have to be that you are doing the action for them. So you're really looking at your boundaries of what you can handle. So once you kind of look at what you can handle, you've tuned into yourself, then what's really important is to also look at, if you are a person that normally would try to overextend, where is that pattern coming from? Often when we have that overextending, it's coming from a place of we are feeling that we are not enough. We are not feeling worthy of love. We don't feel lovable enough. So we want to prove to the world and to ourselves that we are good enough. And I think often our society quantifies a good person with a certain level of overextending and overdoing. And that can be very depleting. It can be stressful. And when we are depleted for a really long period of time, it can really wear down our health. And to have healthier boundaries, we need to look at, okay, how much of this, the way I respond within this pattern, is my own stuff. And often it can be a trauma response. So if we have, maybe we grew up taking care of a parent on an emotional level, and the pattern that got set up is that we are emotionally responsible for their survival. Maybe that parent was really struggling and really needed more help, and they didn't know how to find it by a professional in that moment, and we witnessed them really being emotionally vulnerable, or their health was really vulnerable, or they had mental health issues. And then as a child, we wanted to try and fix it. We really loved them. We really wanted to be there for them. And so this could be a pattern that was produced by a situation where we were powerless to really, it wasn't our job, but it's something that we witnessed. We really loved this person and we wanted to help, and it can produce this inner anxiety. So if this inner anxiety is developed, we are acting out of trauma and anxiety to keep doing this out in the world with people. So if we tune into ourselves and think about, okay, I notice when this situation comes up that I right away impulsively feel like I have to fix it. I have to do something, that it's all up to me. And this is a really exhausting pattern, and it takes away from the other person's power. We want to cultivate and really share the experience of tapping into your own inner strength. Your own inner strength for yourself, to have that boundary and compassion for yourself and realize, okay, I really can't do this. And sometimes you've already said you would do it and you've got to back up. You have to tell them, you know what, I realized that's a little too much for me this week, so I'm going to find another way. And you can even back up and undo it. But start recognizing, where is this coming from? Why am I doing it this way? Why am I so exhausted all the time? And start looking at creating some boundaries and tuning into yourself so that you can start looking at how this pattern developed. If you feel like it's a dysfunctional pattern for you and it causes stress, it comes from an anxiety place, it comes from an old pattern that was learned from long ago, and start looking at this. So again, if you have just tuned in, my name is Michelle Love, and this show is Dynamic Change, and we are focusing on today feeling responsible for someone else's survival on an emotional level, and overextending yourself and overdoing to try to take care of them in that moment and solve their problem, and to an extent where you feel stressed out, you feel depleted, you're not having enough boundaries for your own emotional well-being. So to look at that, tuning into yourself. So first we want to be present with that person. So if we have, for example, someone we love very dearly that just came down with a significant illness and they're devastated. So we can be there for them, listen to them, hug them, tell them how much we love and appreciate them, and that we are going to help them find solutions. And right away, think of some ways they can be reaching out. Ask them, who else do you have as a support system? So it's not just about us. And notice, how do you feel in your body when you're talking to them? Are you feeling stressed somewhere? Are you feeling like it's on you? Is it really vital? Do you feel like inside this stress that they will not make it unless you give them a part of yourself almost? Sometimes it can feel that extreme, like, oh my God, I have to save this. I have to do this for them. So that thought, that feeling, where does that come from? That intense feeling of something bad is going to happen if we do not solve this. That's like a sign. Those extreme thoughts. Okay, where does that thought and belief come from, that if I don't solve this in this moment, something bad happens? So often I will go back to the childhood and I will tune into myself. So again, to tune into ourselves, we have to learn to listen to our bodies, listen to our emotional body, listen to the inner child. So the way to listen is through quieting the mind, breathing deeply, slowing ourselves down. So maybe we need to take a break, take some time, and just sit. So if you notice that this is producing some anxiety within your body, some stress, and you're realizing you have some strong automatic beliefs that go along with this, that kind of just happen whenever someone you care about is really deeply struggling, that you feel really triggered, then just try to step back and tell them, okay, I'm going to look at my schedule, see how much available time I have to where I can help you, and I'm going to think about other ways other people can help you. So it's not about you so much, it's about how they can find help from the world, they can find help from other people that are professionals with that field, how they can research it, how there can be a support group, and you step back. And then you need to tune into yourself. So what I would recommend is, again, we're going to do some deep breathing. So we can do this again together, and I'm going to keep doing this throughout the show because I think it's really important to learn how to listen to your body, listen to your emotional body, to the beliefs that we store within our being that guide our impulses and behavior and patterns in life. And learning to listen to that and slowing down is not something that's really encouraged within our society, rather than just acting or acting out that definition of what is a good person. Right away, I should do everything I can in that moment. There should be no stopping. And that's very gallant, right? But it's not always realistic on, do I have energy for that? And what is the most supportive thing I can do for them to feel empowered, for them to feel like it's a solvable situation? Because there's always this fear for that person too, right? So not everyone's afraid, but I'm saying if it's a really big topic for them, especially if it's a serious illness, there's all this fear that comes up. We want to help them conquer that fear as well by empowering them. So how can we help them conquer that fear? The way to conquer fear is to look at, okay, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid there's no solution. There is that I am powerless. There is no way I can change it. So really acknowledging, wow, that's so intense. That's a lot. Okay, so let's cry. Let's get out. I'm gonna give you a hug, and I love you. And then after that, we're gonna go to, if we educate ourselves around it. So by finding information about that topic at that moment, we're taking some of that fear away. We're taking away that feeling of powerlessness by getting information. When we educate ourselves as much as possible and reach out and ask for help, that is so powerful. So you're allowing them to tune into their strength of asking for help, which is so powerful. Finding ways to find help, finding ways to define the problem so it takes the fear away. And the more we define it and gather information, the fear starts to subside. And then solutions start coming up and actions can come up. Okay, now I know this amazing group and they had already researched all these things. And now I know some things I can do, and I'm going to start feeling better. I'm going to start feeling like there is hope. We want to give them hope. So we want to really look at how to support them to be empowered. And then we're really going to look at ourselves. So now we're going to tune into ourselves, and I'm going to show you how to listen to the emotional body, to your inner child, listen to yourself somatically. So we're going to, hopefully you can sit down, or you can sit down later, but be comfortable. You can even lay down if you want. Have your hands palm up. If you can, close your eyes, and we're going to take some deep breaths. You can do this with me now. We're going to take 3 deep breaths and breathe in as deeply as you can. Hold the breath for a moment. When you exhale, try to push all that air out by contracting your abdominals to really expel all the air, and that way you will take a nice deep breath. You can also start with a glass of water. I recommend that to be first. Have a glass of water, drink this full glass of water. When you're done drinking, you're going to have to take a deep breath. It's always important to be really hydrated. That helps your mind work better. It helps you have more energy. It helps us feel regulated for so many systems of our body. And we're often dehydrated. So drinking a glass of water, and then we're going to take 3 deep breaths. So do this with me now. Hopefully you've had a chance to drink some water. And here we go. Inhaling. And then hold that breath. Hold it. And when you exhale, push all the air out. Hold it for a moment. And then when you're ready, inhale so deeply down into your belly. And then hold it for maybe a count of 3 or 4, and then exhale fully. Push all that air out. And then hold it, and then inhale. And then you're going to hold that. And then when you're ready, exhale. Okay, so you can continue to have your eyes closed if you want, and I want you to think of a situation where you had someone come to you and they were asking, someone you cared deeply for, that they really desperately was going through something and you really wanted to help them. And you noticed that you felt some stress in your body. So just think about how you feel. If you think this is a pattern for you, not everyone has it, but I think a lot of us do. I think this is a common pattern. So just tune into yourself and notice, do I tend to have good boundaries when someone is asking me for help that I really care about, or do I have some anxiety or stress or belief that comes up in my system somewhere in my body where I feel like I have to do more than I know I can handle. So tuning in to that, see what you find. First, look inside your body and see, is there stress being held in my body somewhere? We're going to look somatically into the body and see, okay, I feel it in my heart, there it is. I feel it in my throat, there it is. Okay, so what is that? So if we feel it in our heart, that could be anxiety, that could be worry. So if we have a natural kind of built up pattern that our body's been holding, it can be triggered, right? These situations can be triggering a pattern that we imprinted on as a child. So if I feel that stress on my heart, maybe I grew up with a parent, this is an example, okay? Maybe the pattern could be growing up with a parent that did not know how to resolve some patterns in their life. Let's just do, for example, we'll do the sickness one. Let's say they were sick. Okay, so they were chronically sick, and so when we have a friend that comes to us and says, you know, I'm sick and I just found out I have diabetes, it triggers what we grew up with. We watched this parent that we cherished that was very sickly, and they didn't have a support system, they didn't know how to address it, maybe they had mental illness, and we felt powerless. But we were trying to overcome that powerlessness by trying to solve it for them, to help them survive. As a child, this could be really scary. If the parent was really struggling quite severely, then it would be registering within our bodies and our emotional body that it had to do with survival. Maybe we thought, mom may die, dad may die if this doesn't get resolved, and we are seeing that they don't have enough of a support system. Maybe there's no one else involved, maybe there's not a partner, maybe there's no relatives, and we just see them suffering. So what does that do to our emotional belief system and our inner child? So notice that. So a lot of times anxiety is registered either on the heart or in the abdomen, like in the stomach. So you can kind of see what you feel. If you feel it in your throat, often I think that's when we didn't have a situation where we were able to communicate what we needed to say. Maybe we held back all these things we wish we could have said to the parent of, I'm so upset and scared that you are sick, that I don't know how this is going to be resolved. I don't know who's going to be able to help. I'm really scared. Maybe it's all of that kind of stuff that made us feel all choked up with these things we had no place to take, no place to say it. We were scared of it. We were scared to look at it. So, these can be very strong things that we've had to hold. So we want to pay attention. And then we can write this down. So I recommend getting a journal and just start writing what you find. Okay, my inner child needs some support with this pattern. How can I start giving support to my inner child? Write it all down. Okay, so that's our example. So it was either health or mental illness stuff that we saw the parents struggling with, where they were not able to find a solution. And this has affected my behavior and belief patterns in this way. So what we're going to do is we are going to do a guided meditation around how to resolve this type of pattern. Before we do this meditation, I am going to read an announcement for KPCA LP in Petaluma. Here we go. Ready? Live crashing head folds, Wednesdays at 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. This show is hosted by Mona. Live crashing head folds is a weekly radio program playing all forms of experimental music, from academic and fine art down to home taped noises and industrial crud. I love that. 2 hours of music and its opposites. Bring your own questions and leave with new ones. That sounds really lovely. It sounds very creative. So that's one of the shows that is available to you. It is hosted by Mona. Wednesdays 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. You can tune in to KPCA LP in Petaluma for that show. Okay, so now again, my name is Michelle Love, and this is Dynamic Change, and we are getting ready to do a meditation to help resolve the pattern of feeling responsible for others' survival on an emotional level when we come up against this in life and we've realized that we have a pattern from our childhood that is triggered, and it triggers anxiety and certain actions that are detrimental to our own well-being. So what we're going to do is, for this guided meditation, I'm going to have you get comfortable, and we're going to take 3 deep breaths, breathing at your own breath pace, but very deeply. You might want to start with drinking a glass of water. I recommend that's the easiest way to not only hydrate and regulate yourself, but then to prepare the body for deep breathing. So 3 deep breaths. You can do this with me now. Palms can be up on your legs, like on your thighs, or you can lay down. If you're at home and listening to this later, you can lay down. So we're going to take 3 deep breaths. You can close your eyes if you want. Do this with me now. Inhaling and exhaling. And inhaling deeply. Holding the breath for a count of 3 or 4. And then exhale fully, pushing all the air out by contracting your abdomen. Inhaling and exhaling. And then think of a moment when you had a dynamic of someone you deeply cared about, had a significant problem, let's say a health problem, like let's say someone came down with diabetes and this was very upsetting for them, and you felt upset about it as well, and you noticed that it felt a little scary, that it brought up anxiety, and that you felt, in order for them to survive and be well and something bad not happening, that this urgency came up in your body. So you want to pay attention to that. So what we're going to do is see where you felt it in your body. See where the dis-ease, where it does not feel comfortable, where it feels stressed out, where you feel tight, where you feel constriction, where you can feel the tension. Where is that in your body? And then, after noticing that, And again, sometimes you need to stop and journal to keep record, and it will help stimulate you finding more information later. So sometimes you need to take a break, write it down real quick, and then go back. But we're going to really pay attention. So just for example, I feel it in my chest and I feel it in my throat. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go to the chest, and I want you to come up with a color that you really like. Your favorite color. To you, it represents healing, it's soothing, so whatever feels really good to you. I love green, so I'm going to do green. So imagine bringing this big circle of energy of green, because our body has energy. The scientists will tell you we have our own organic energy. And this energy works with all your systems, your physical body, your mind, and your emotional body. Everything is connected to this energy. So to regulate ourselves, to help our body process things through the tissue where our emotional baggage is stored, within our tissue, within our cells, we work with the energy. So you bring this ball of energy to the heart and circulate it in your heart, and just make it swirl and swirl and swirl. And what it's doing, focus on it kind of melting and breaking up that stress that you felt. So imagine that it's just melting it. Maybe it's a warm, beautiful green energy. Maybe it's kind of crackly, and it breaks it up that way. Maybe it's moving around like this ball that gently dislodges the stuff that's been stuck in the chest, and see it start moving. And then go up to the throat. Maybe pick a different color for the throat. Maybe it's this beautiful blue, a soothing blue, and you just move that ball around your throat, and just think of, okay, I'm acknowledging I couldn't communicate back then. I felt so powerless. I held back all these things I couldn't say because I could tell what I was seeing my parents struggle with. They were so delicate and vulnerable that I didn't think I could even say anything. And that was a huge burden to hold in, right? So how can I start releasing this? And so you soothe and relax the throat by continuously deep breathing, moving this energy around your throat. As it's soothing the area, it's allowing the muscles to relax, and keep breathing and breathing deeply, deeply, deeply. So once we feel like we've had a shift, something, okay, I feel more relaxed, I can breathe more deeply. Maybe you cried. Crying's great. You know, maybe you had to really have an aha moment where you're like, oh wow, I didn't realize I was really holding a lot there, and I can see where that comes from. Okay, so once you have that, tune into your inner child. How old were you when that was going on? And see if you can connect with yourself at that age and talk to them like a parent. This is your child. What would you say to them? What would you first validate their feelings and really say, I really acknowledge how scary that was. I really acknowledge you had no one you could really share it with. I really acknowledge that you were trying to be strong for that parent that was struggling so deeply and they didn't know a better way to handle it. I really acknowledge the burden, and tell them that wasn't your place. There was nothing you could have done. It was something that an adult should have handled. It would have been better for the parent to have their own solutions, to have been in their own power, and maybe telling them, maybe recognizing how that felt. Maybe you felt really drained. Maybe you felt really like you didn't have the emotional energy for yourself. Maybe you felt really depressed seeing that, or really angry, or really frustrated. Like, really see how they felt. Speak to it. You can say it out loud and talk to them. You can write it down. You can say it in your mind, but really connect with the grief, the frustration, the anxiety, the fear, whatever it was, and start articulating it. And then and tell that inner child that you're letting them off the hook. You're the adult, and explain to them this is what was going on with that parent. Because as we grow up, we have the wisdom, right? We realize what was really going on. And we can explain that to the inner child, because they get stuck in the experience. It's kind of like they get frozen in time, and our emotional body just carries that burden from that age. So it's stuck at that inner child's ability to understand. So in order to allow yourself to grow beyond that, we have to explain it to that age so they can digest that and heal from it and let it go. So then we got to shift that within ourselves, let the inner child off the hook, and let them know we got this now. And I'm going to develop a new plan. And so now we need to develop a new plan of behavior rather than running a pattern that is stemming from trauma and anxiety from something that we experienced as a child. And how can we create a safe container for ourselves, for our own well-being, and paying attention to how we need to now take care of ourselves in a whole new way. Okay, so we develop a plan. Our plan is we're going to step back and not commit right away. What we can commit to is, I love you so much, and I'm going to think of some ways in the next couple weeks that I can help support you. I'm going to give you a call tomorrow. I'm going to think about it tonight. And I love you. Give them a hug. And that's a lot. Right there, you were present with them. You gave them a safe container. You can ask them, are you going to be okay tonight? And if you need to, you can call me, or you can let them know you're available, but take a step back if you feel like they're going to be okay. All right? So, or if they're not going to be okay, you can say, I'm going to call you in a few hours, and in those few hours, tune into yourself and think of some ways that they can have some support. So maybe during that time you quickly Googled, okay, here are support groups. Here's a hotline for this. I found this YouTube. And then you call them back in a few hours and say, I want you to consider looking at these things, calling this support group, getting some information. Here's a YouTube. I looked up this guided meditation, something to calm them down and give them something that they can do. Action will help with their fear if they're feeling really overwhelmed and afraid. Okay? So after you've done all of that, then what you're going to do is look at the next couple weeks and decide what are some healthy boundaries. So this is what you're telling your inner child. You are not going to immediately, impulsively try to fix it. You're also going to look at this person as everyone's a powerful person. So even though maybe the parent they witnessed didn't seem powerful as they were struggling, there was still the ability for that person to turn inward and find their strength. It's just not everyone knows how to do that. Maybe they were unable to figure it out in that moment, but there are steps that everyone can take to handle a situation or to ask for help, right? So first we're going to look at that person and acknowledge how powerful they are. And often I will tell people and say, I know this is really scary, and really acknowledge your feelings, but I also know how strong you are and how brilliant you are. And there are solutions, and they will come to you. And I will help you brainstorm ideas of how you can reach out for some help. So we have our new plan of how we are going to support them, how we're going to see them as powerful and see them as our equal. That's another important thing. So as a child, if we felt responsible and like we had to be there for that parent, like we were almost, it was almost like reversed, like emotionally we were the parent and the adult was the child, then we don't see the parent, like we almost feel above them on some level, like we have to be the strong one, we have to be that the ones that have that strength. So if we look at people as our equals, we have to adjust that and say, okay, now I can adjust that. I can look at them as powerful. They are capable of finding their own power, and see them as an equal. And then you can step back, and so you're going to see the person different, and then you're going to have different behaviors. You're going to pull back and not overcommit. You're going to tune into your energy level, and you're going to see how much energy you have and develop a plan of, okay, I'm going to start with next week. I have a couple hours on this day and a couple hours on that day where I'm going to help them. And whether you drive them to an appointment or you help them to continue to brainstorm how to find more support, so it's not just you. Continuously empowering them, continuously finding information that helps them feel more educated so it's not so scary, taking the fear away, conquering the fear, okay? So we're going to look at those new behaviors, and then you have to have the new ways of thinking. You see them as an equal, and you are registering that this triggers something that you grew up with, and you're developing a new pattern for yourself of how to respond to that particular trigger in your life, that dynamic with people. So you are not only taking care of yourself, which is empowering and is empowering to others when we have those boundaries. Modeling boundaries is one of the most empowering things you can do. In my opinion, within society today, we need more boundaries. Again, my name is Michelle Love. I'm with KPCA LP in Petaluma, and this show is called Dynamic Change. I am a certified wellness coach, self-defense instructor, fitness trainer, and I have a degree in psychology. And what I really want to share with people is how to create healthy boundaries, how to create new patterns that help heal past trauma, past emotional experiences that need to be healed and that get triggered. And how can we develop new behaviors and program the way we think in a new way, and program our emotional responses and our ability to listen to ourselves, and starting to pay attention to what we need. What do we need in life to really feel more wellness and to feel whole within ourselves? So we've developed a new plan, and we've thought about how we're going to think about it differently, how we're going to say different things. So I would continuously focus on, okay, what am I going to say? Rather than, of course, I'll do everything for you, right? Right away, I'm going to say, I love this person. I'm going to tell them, I'm here for you. I'm going to think about some ways I can support you and also find resources for you. And I'm going to give you a call later tonight or tomorrow. Are you going to be okay? And check in with them. And maybe that person just really needed to talk and they're really scared, but they're like, no, I'm going to be okay. And thank you for listening and letting me cry. It'll be okay. And see how you feel. Again, go into your body and say, okay, am I scared they're not going to be okay? Where does that come from? If you have those kinds of feelings, if anxiety is triggered, keep going back to noticing, how do I feel in my body? How am I responding? How am I thinking? Do I feel like I need to save them? Okay, where does that come from? And keep going back to it, and keep going back to it, because I think this is a very common pattern. So we've developed some phrases in our mind of ways we can decide how we can give ourselves healthy boundaries and still feel like we are being available to others that we really care deeply for. So, coming up with those phrases, I love to have those in my mind, and I keep focusing on them. This is what I'm going to say. This is my plan. And I keep telling the inner child that. The inner child has to believe you. If they think you don't mean it, there's not going to be an emotional change, and you're not going to feel secure on an emotional level. There's still going to be anxiety or fear or something that's going to be triggered in your tissue, in your somatic response, and in your emotional body, or your inner child's going to feel this pull. right, with this trigger. So you have the phrases with your mind that you thought of, your different ways of working with your emotional body. And so as practice in your mind, like a guided meditation, focus on the new ways to communicate. Focus on the new ways to behave around this topic. If you notice the feelings come up, keep journaling about it. Keep focusing on this is the new plan. So now I can now let that fear go. So what I do is I send healing to that fear. Let's say a lot of fear gets triggered, and that's, and all this anxiety comes up. Okay, so what I would do is, again, take about 3 deep breaths. You can do this with me now. Let's say some fear. You noticed fear and anxiety was huge. Okay, 3 deep breaths. Hold that breath and then exhale. Another deep breath. Hold that breath and then exhale. One more breath. And then exhale. Now imagine if you can put that fear out in front of you, like this big ball of, let's give it a color. Let's see, gunky gray, okay? Gunky gray. We're going to give it this gunky color. It's this big ball in front of us, and we're going to do something with that fear. So imagine sending healing, this beautiful, I'm going to put, say, the color orange. I love the sunset when it's orange. It's so beautiful. So I'm going to send it this orange, and it's going to be warm, and it's going to start, healing that. It's going to start relaxing that. It's going to start shifting that color. And I'm just going to allow that to start painting over and dissolving that gunk. And I'm going to keep doing that, and I'm going to do it with the intention of my mind, with my thoughts. I'm going to keep breathing deeply, and I'm going to melt that fear. And then I'm going to, in my body, imagine, and you have to create this within your body, because maybe you never knew how it felt to feel calm. If this was a big, let's say was a big pattern for you, maybe you never felt calm whenever someone was really going through something really intense that you care deeply about. Maybe it just triggered you, and there was always anxiety. So you have to imagine. Now you have to imagine and build that sensation and create it, the knowledge of how it would feel to feel peaceful and calm and like everything's going to be okay, and there is a solution. So imagine that sensation in your body. Make that thought bigger than the fear. So what I do is to conquer fear is I think of the antithesis of it. The opposite is, rather than being afraid that there is no solution, I see that there is so much help out in the world. I see how powerful that person is. I see that I have the strength to help them find solutions, like stimulate ideas so they can do that work. But I can offer I have that power now. Rather than feeling powerless, I have the power to help assist them finding their own solutions and their own support structure. So it's a completely different way of looking at that. And so you keep focusing on the new thoughts, the new beliefs, and that's what you constantly focus on. And you keep working on having the fear outside your body, give it a big gunky color, and you keep melting it and melting it and melting it. Now the last thing before we end today is I also want to talk about seeing the person differently. So I constantly, when I realize something is really triggering, like fear, or something that I feel out of control to help someone else with, is I will focus on seeing them so different. I change my lens. I will see them as powerful. Everyone is powerful. So I see how intelligent they are. I see how emotionally intelligent they are and how creative they are, and that they have a drive in them. And even if they're not in tune with that, I see them finding it. So I start seeing them different. So I think when we see them as powerful, you help facilitate them moving into that power. If we see them as a victim, we are disempowering them, really. We're projecting that they can't do it, right? We don't want to do that. We want to project that they are so powerful that they are going to conquer this. And so constantly seeing those people as so capable supports them being powerful in their own path, in their own way, and it helps bring forth healing in their life, and it lets go of any pattern where you felt obligated that you had to sacrifice yourself for their survival on some level. Energetically, you sacrificed yourself, you overextended yourself, you didn't take care of yourself, whatever it is. But there's like this sacrifice, right? We are worthy of taking care of ourselves, having healthy boundaries, and always working towards having compassion and love for what we need, and really paying attention to what we need in every moment. So again, my name is Michelle Love, and this show is Dynamic Change. The focus is to bring more wellness in your life and more fulfilling connection with others. You can find out more about me and the work I do with my wellness coaching, self-defense, and fitness training by going to my website, dynamicchangewellness.com, and please email me through the website any questions. Next week I will be talking about techniques for stopping patterns of anxiety. So if you have any particular type of anxiety or issue or stress that you want to find solutions for, that's what I will be speaking about for next week. This show airs every week on Wednesdays at 11 o'clock. Next week at December 18th will be the next show. So please tune in at that time. I upload my shows to YouTube, and then I put the links for the shows on Facebook, and I put them on Instagram, and I also, well, that's pretty much it. So I try to really show you how you can find the show. If you want to look for it on YouTube, look up Dynamic Change and Wellness, and then a little bit down the feed, it's not very far, you'll be able to see the show. Again, this is Dynamic Change. My name is Michelle Love, and I so appreciate you tuning in today. I so appreciate KPCA LP in Petaluma for giving me this forum, and I'm excited for everyone to have more wellness, to have the tools to develop patterns in their lives that allow them to feel safe, to allow them to feel present with themselves and able to tune into themselves in a deep way, emotionally and somatically in their body, and to slow down within themselves so they are present with themselves, and to support more empowerment within the world. Thank you so much for tuning in.